Okay, so in this screencast, I'm going to be explaining how we go from the raw data that we collected in this lab to transforming that to actually kind of the next step. So going from percent transmittance in time that you recorded from the spectrophotometers, and then turning that into a rate. And I'm going to help you to do that using Excel, although you can also do it in Sheets. So again, our research question is intensity of light affecting the rate of photosynthesis. You were just testing one treatment. So maybe you had 500 lux or something along those lines. And so you'll do 5 different trials at that particular light intensity. And you would have recorded how the transmittance was changing over a 15-minute period for all 5 of those trials. Okay. And so this is the data that you collected and we're writing down as that was happening. Once you have that data, you're going to want to copy it onto the class. I've got a class stretch day. So depending on if you're morning or afternoon, you're going to want to go to the percent transmittance versus time and add your data to that table. So if I'm just going to paste some data in, pretend this was your data. Actually, I don't like that data. I'm going to put in a different one. Here we go. I'm going to put in this data here. So let's say this was your data, okay? And again, you should be seeing, unless you're the dark group, you should be seeing percent transmittance go up over time as the DPIP accepts those electrons as photosynthesis occurs. Okay, so you should be seeing the percent transmittance for each of these trials going up over time. Now, we want to turn that into a rate. So we don't want it to just be, how much, transmittance is happening at time 10, at 10 minutes for trial 1. You want to figure out how quickly was that happening? What was the rate of photosynthesis happening in your trial 1 test tube? What was the rate in your trial 2 test tube, and so on. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And once you have your rates, then you're basically going to get one rate per trial. And then you're going to go to the lux versus rate. So lux is the light intensity versus the rate. And so if you were 500, you're going to put a rate in, the rate for trial 1, your rate for trial 2, trial 3, trial 4, and trial 5. So you'll need to fill out that row of your trials based on the data that you collected during the lab. So I'm going to copy and paste this into Excel. So here's my Excel workbook. And I will try to make that bigger for you so you can see actually what I'm doing here. Blow that up. All right. So now in our Excel workbook, I essentially want to figure out what is the rate. Now you can calculate rate in with rise over run, right? The change in transmittance over the change in time. But the way I want you to try to do this is by graphing each trial in a scatter plot. And then we'll do a line of best fit, and the slope of that line will be our rate. So if I want to put this in a scatter plot, I will highlight it all, and I can insert a chart. And the type of chart that I want to insert is a scatter plot. Okay, so you can see I'm pulling that down. And I'm just looking to see, okay, does this make sense? I should have what's going on here is it's a little bit confused because it's seeing time as not as my X or Y. So that didn't work out very well for us. So I'm going to modify my chart by right-clicking and selecting the data. And I want to switch from row to column and see if that fixes things. It does. Okay. So the way that I did that again is I right-clicked, and you can hit pause if you need to, and I said select data, and then I switched the row and column because I want to be plotting each individual trial. All right, so you double check it, make sure. So we should have time going from, it should be on the x-axis. That is our x variable. So that should be going from 0 to 15. That makes sense. And we took a reading at 0, 5, 10, and 15, right? And then our y-axis should be our percent transmittance, right? And so we know that ranges somewhere from 20 up to 68. Okay, so then you can do all these things. You could label this, but I technically wouldn't put your chart title there. I would put it somewhere else. I'd put it down below. So and you can rename your axes if you want to go to add chart element and you want to go axes titles. You can do primary horizontal and primary vertical. My horizontal we know is going to be my time, right? Time, and that is in minutes. And my axes title for my vertical is going to be percent transmittance. Okay. So then I want to add a trend line. And you can see each trial has a different color. So which trial I'm highlighting at the time can be a little bit difficult to see, but it looks like the lighter blue is trial 5 and my darker blue is trial 1. So I'm going to go to trial 1, find that there, and I'm going to try to click on just that data set of the darker blue. So this should be my trial 1, and I can kind of double check. Trial 1 starts at 19, where all my other ones start at over 20. So that having that lower one be highlighted, and it also is highlighted here, so I know which one I'm looking at. Okay, so I know this is the right one. And then I'm going to add chart element, and I'm going to go to Trendline. And in this case, I'm going to go to linear. Okay, and I want more than just the trend line. I also want to get some better information out of that trend line. So I'm going to click on the trend line. I'm right clicking on it, and that's going to bring this up. And I want to format my trend line. And I said linear, but I also want the equation and the R-square value. Okay. So that should have worked out for me, hopefully. And I'm just going to close this here. And there we are. And that is for my trial 1, that is my trend line equation and my R-square value. This right here, the 3.24, that is my rate for trial 1 because that is the slope of this line. So I am going to put in my trials, right? So for each trial, I need to be able to calculate a rate, right? So for my trial 1, if I'm going to add just rate over here, I'm just going to put in that trial 1, the rate is 3.24. So you can see it's that, okay? I can then find my trial 2, which is the orange one. And oh gosh, it's really hard to find my orange one. Let me see if I can find it. I'm kind of playing with I want to do my trial 2. It's letting me pick up on trial 3. See that one? Will it let me have my trial 2? I might need to increase my graph a little bit to give a little spread of my data. Maybe I can pull it here. Sometimes it's a little harder to click on what you want. There we go. I got it. I got my trial 3. All right. So again, I'm going to add my trend line. You can either do that by right clicking or when you're in chart design, if you go to add chart element, you go to trend line and I want a linear trend line. And you can also right click that trend line to format it. And that will give us the equation and the R-square value. Okay. And that should be there. So I'm going to just put my trial 1 there, and I'll put my trial 2 here. And now I'm going to record the data, my 2.48. Okay. So I'm going to go through and do that for all of them. And after I do that, then I'll also have my R-square valued for each of these. And my R-square value is going to indicate that is my coefficient of determination. And that tells me how well the data points fit the trend line. And see how close to 1 that is? That means that there's a very strong correlation between the data points and the trend line, which makes the predictive value or the predictive ability of this model really good. So what that's saying is that because this is 0.97, I feel pretty comfortable that this rate is a very good estimation of the rate of the data that I took, because they follow the trend line so nicely that that should be the rate that really represents it. So you'll go through and you'll do that for each of your trials. And then once you have those for your trials, then you'll go back to the group sheet and you will put those trials in here. So for each one of those trials that you did on Excel, let me find it on Excel. So this 3.24, which is trial 1 rate, right? You would put that into your data right here, your 3.24. Okay, that's your rate in percent T versus time. So you need to do that for each one of your trials. Okay, hopefully this helps get you where you need to be.